Hi, I'm Robbie O'Daniel. I'm the editor of the LaFollette Press, and I'm here with LaFollette, retiring LaFollette Police Chief Bill Roehl. Nice to see you, Chief.
Robbie, it's nice to see you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
And we're also got LaFollette Press Assistant Editor Eva Herinkova here. Today's the last official day for Bill Roehl as he retires as LaFollette Police Chief. What's going through your mind today?
Well, I'm just excited about what the future holds for me and everything. I can't say enough about how blessed I have been to have the opportunity to be the police chief here in this community. Good Lord has blessed me over the years and gave me the opportunity to come back home after a career in Knoxville. So excited to be here, excited for the opportunities ahead.
So take us through, where were you born, and take your upbringing and all that.
Well, I was born at St. Mary's in Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, my father was the TWRA officer here in Campbell County.
Mm-hmm.
And after being born, we came
Yeah.
back to Campbell County. I grew up in LaFollette, the
Mm-hmm.
Jacksboro area, and got the opportunity to see policing at an early age, much like Mayberry,
Yeah.
as Opie did in Mayberry. My grandfather was the police chief here in the early 1960s.
Okay.
The police department was located then on First Street,
Yeah.
next to the Imperial Reading Shirt Factory.
Uh-huh.
You had Shelby Grocery was down the street as well. You had the bus terminal was also located down there. But the jail itself was a one-room building. You went inside there. They had a jail there, and you just kind of went inside and got the atmosphere about law enforcement in a small town community. I think that was probably the first time I had a setting, with law enforcement.
Yeah, and so do you remember like the first time maybe you saw, law enforcement or anything like that, or any memories from your adolescence that
Sure,
really struck with you?
my grandfather would allow me to come to the jail. Actually, he gave me a ride in the police car occasionally. And I would go to the jail, and one of the first things that I remember from that was there was an old Coca-Cola machine inside that jail,
Uh-huh.
and it had kind of a bubble front end and whatnot, and a small silver arm. You put a nickel in the machine, and it gave you a Coca-Cola.
I wish it still cost a nickel.
Hey,
Times
that's
have
been a
changed.
while, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So what's your grandfather's name, and what kind of relationship did you have with him?
I had a great relationship with all my family. My grandfather's name was Alex Carson,
How do you spell that?
Alex,
Oh, okay.
and but he went by Alec, and a lot of people call him Alex. But again, he was the chief here for a few years back in the '60s and whatnot. And I've just been around law enforcement pretty much all my life. I guess you could say that I was destined to be a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather in Knoxville was a reserve police officer in Knoxville.
Uh-huh.
I had an uncle that was with the FBI up in Quantico. My great-great-grandfather, I'll take it even back further than that. My great-great-grandfather was the police commissioner for the city of Knoxville in 1897.
Wow.
So it's, I guess you could say that I was destined to be a police officer.
So how did you? So was it something like when you were in high school, you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get in law
Well,
enforcement.
I knew it long before that.
Okay.
I knew it at an early age, and I was excited about it. Left high school, graduated from Jacksboro High School
Yeah.
before it combined with LaFollette and made Campbell County.
Right.
Left high school, went into the university, and studied there for a while.
UT.
Yes, left the university and came home one day, told my dad, said, I'm not going back. And he said, well, you're going to have to get the job. I said, well, I'm going into policing, so I'll attempt to do that. That very day, I went over to the police department in Knoxville and to seek employment there. Filled out a card for an application, submitted it with them. Came back home, and I knew that my father had told me I needed to get a job, so I said, I better try to find a job. And so I stopped at the sheriff's department here in Campbell County. Harry Curtin was the sheriff at that particular time. And he happened to be there as I walked in. I got a chance to speak with him. he employed me that day.
When was this?
That was in 1978. It's August of 1978.
Mm-hmm.
He employed me that day. He said, come back tonight and we'll put you to work. And I went to work that night as the jailer and as night shift jailer dispatcher for the sheriff's department.
What was that first night like? What were you
Well,
thinking?
I was, it was learning experience. There wasn't a lot of hustle and bustle going on the first night. We had people that were there that were training me, and so I had somebody to help assist me. Mike Curtin, the sheriff's son, had worked there as well, and he helped get me acclimated into the dispatching and the jailing process.
Mm-hmm. What's that job like? I know it can be kind of sometimes the hours kind of crawl. Sometimes it's kind of
Well, it was a little different then
Yeah.
than it is now. Again, you didn't see the hustle and bustle.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much today, the jail is going 24/7.
Yeah.
And people are being incarcerated, and the jailer, they have various tasks that they're responsible for. On the position back in 1978, you might get one or two people a week. And so coming through there, but you still had to maintain the jail,
Right.
make sure that everybody that was in the jail at that time, that they were safe, during the night and things. And so you'd walk the catwalks and just to make sure that everyone's appeared to be safe, while maintaining the fact that you had to ensure that the officers in the field were safe by dispatching. So I did that for a period of about 5 to 6 months while Knoxville was processing my application, and I left there. I left the sheriff's department in February. Went to work for the police department in Knoxville February the 5th, 1979.
Mm-hmm. So what were you studying at UT, and what was kind of what was the reason you were just like, this is not for
I was
me?
just basically taking the core courses.
Yeah.
I made sure that I got those taken care of. And again, I didn't really see a need at that particular time. After a few years at Knoxville, I did see a need to go back to school, and I had my core courses behind me, and I was able to finish up, and I went and finished a police science degree, associate's degree from Rome State, and then took that and went further and went to Tusculum and got my degree in business and organizational management.
Was there anything that particular day, or just I've had it, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into law enforcement, I'm not going to UT anymore?
No, that wasn't it. It was just that I knew that I was ready to start the process of my career. And, I felt like that, there was a good opportunity in Knoxville. I knew that they were hiring people that hadn't had a class for 5 years before they hired my basic academy class. And so I knew that the opportunity was there, and I just took my shot, and I did get the opportunity to go to work for KPD.
What was it that drew you to law enforcement? Obviously, you had the family background, but what made you want to continue to follow in your grandfather's footsteps?
I'll just be honest with you. I don't like to see people victimized. And, and you in a daily walk, anybody's daily walk, you see people out here that are hurting and that are victims. And I just felt like that would be the type of service that I wanted to go into. So.
Was what drew you to Knoxville Police Department in particular, considering you said that your first exposure was how great small town policing?
Right. Well, I'd spent a couple of years at the university,
Right.
so I got used to Knoxville. Plus, too, my dad was originally from Knoxville, and before he came here, I had family in Knoxville as well. And so we were, I was over here with family, as a youth. I was in Campbell County with family. I was with family in Knoxville as a youth, and I just saw the opportunity to go there, and I thought that it'd be a good chance for me.
What are your parents' names, and what did they do?
Well, my dad, again, his name was James William Roehl. He was at the time the only TWRA officer here in Campbell County. Occasionally we'd get a few other people coming through in that position, but for the most part, he was the only one that was stationed here. And my mother was Mildred Roehl. She worked for the bank, First National Bank in LaFollette, for a number of years.
How would,
Became community trust.
yeah.
So,
How would you say they influenced you growing up?
well, my parents were really very supportive of me and the things that I wanted to do. They tried to encourage me to stay in school, and I remember that my dad, was especially tried to encourage me to stay the course in college, but I felt like it was time to do something else. But they were very supportive of it. Once I told them, the direction that I wanted to go, everything seemed to be okay, and it fell in place.
Was there ever, obviously, what kind of keeps some people from going into law enforcement is there's an obvious danger element. Was there anything that you ever thought of, or maybe your loved ones ever thought of, like, oh, I don't want you to do that?
Well, certainly there's things that are dangerous out there, and I always put my faith and trust in the people that work closely with me. Well, the law enforcement it's not a position to where you just go to work and, hey, I'm the only one here and I'm going to address this. You got a supporting cast around you. You got the team players that are with you, and I was fortunate to have really good people working with me.
So how did you progress at the KPD?
We had the opportunity. Phil Keith became the police chief and was there for a bit and developed a thing called career development for law enforcement. And in the process, he set an educational standard for the officers for Knoxville. And in order to progress, everybody wants to be chief. I'll tell you right up front, when I walked in, the very first thing they asked me at the police academy was, what do you intend to do here? I said, ultimately, I'm going to be chief. And, so everybody has the opportunity to advance to the highest level, or, have a desire to do that. Phil came in, he put career development in place. I saw what the structure was for that. It required certain educational standards for the officers to advance, and that's when I decided to go back to school and get my degree.
So, and I know that's been big for you as the chief in LaFollette, is career development and everything like that for your office.
Right, I believe in that. I believe that people need to try to better themselves to the best ability that they can. When given opportunities, take those opportunities, seek them, find those opportunities and take them. I encourage our officers to go back to school. I know that the city of LaFollette has a tuition reimbursement plan in place, that if they go back to school and they make a certain grade, they can get their education paid for them. So I encourage them to do that, and a couple of people have taken us up on that, and we see these people once they get their degree, they seek other opportunities, which helps better themselves and their family.
So, what all positions did you hold over your time with KPD?
I was with Knoxville for a period of 12 years before I got the opportunity to test for sergeant. Mm-hmm. And we had a testing procedure there, so you had to test for those particular ranks. Before I became a sergeant, I ran a beat in East Knoxville, around Magnolia Avenue, Austin East High School, Walter P. Taylor Homes, those areas in there. Ran that beat in there for 8 years. I was also a member of the SWAT team in Knoxville, and so when the opportunity became available to test for the position of sergeant, I did so. I didn't get it the first go around. I didn't get it, and I was hurt. It hurts when you fail at something that you have a desire to do.
What was the test like? Was it?
It was a multiple hurdle examination. It's one where you have a written examination, and then you have a thing called an in-basket that follows up on that, which gives you a group of tasks to take care of within a short period of time. And you have a time frame to do that. You had that in basket. You had a physical fitness test that you had to take that was part of the process as well. Then you had an internal interview first with people from the police department, and then people from the external side of things, which would make recommendations on who they think were best suited for the position. So again, I didn't make it the first time through. I passed everything, okay? I passed the entire process. The idea was to promote 16 people, and there was over 200 people that took the test. 22 of us passed it. 16 got promoted, so I was one of the 6 that didn't.
Okay.
And so anyway, I was still sitting here, and the testing was the time frame was good for 2 years, and so within that 2-year period of time, I got promoted to sergeant.
Okay, and then how did it go from there? What was some of your duties as sergeant?
Okay, well, once I was sergeant, I went back to East Knoxville. I held the position as sergeant for patrol in that area. Shortly thereafter, the chief approached me and asked me if I would consider being a sergeant on the power squad. And the power squad was a group of officers that were young officers that just come out of the academy. And so they came out of the academy and they come to a particular shift once they finished their field training process. And they come to the afternoon shift, and it was primarily afternoons. And they would work with senior officers, and we had certain senior officers, and you had sergeants that worked with them. And so I was on the power squad. Got a chance to see a number of people come through in 1993 in there. Shortly after that, I was promoted to lieutenant. Went to the West District, flipped sides, and supervised everything on the west side of town from 275 west of the city limits. Within 3 years of that, I was promoted to captain, made captain, and was put in the chief's office to deal with special projects as a captain, and had that position for a period of 3 years before I was promoted to deputy chief and placed in the criminal investigations division. After about a 3-year period of time, moved to patrol, where I spent my last years at KPD as deputy chief of patrol.
Okay, and then so how did you decide? Like, how did you decide to pursue becoming the police chief in LaFollette?
Well, the opportunity arose here to apply for this position. Early on, I applied. I guess I've been with KPD probably 25 years when I saw that the position was open. I applied and I didn't get the position at that point. It was my 3rd time before I was able to achieve the role as police chief here for LaFollette.
What did it mean for you? You're talking about, has been your ambition.
Well, I felt like I had a lot to offer to my hometown. I learned quite a bit in Knoxville. I had went to various different types of training, experienced various different things, worked on a number of different projects. Learned quite a bit in my role as an officer with KPD, and I thought I could bring some of that back to LaFollette and maybe move us forward with some things through the experiences that I have and I think we were able to do some things while I'm here that's going to help move the police department forward in the future. So.
What was it like moving from such a big police force in Knoxville and then returning to a smaller, more rural area as the police chief?
Well, I had to get reacclimated to things. Okay, I started out at a small agency in Campbell County, and then once moving into a larger agency, I just had to get reacclimated again. One of the very first things that one of the officers told me when I got here, they said, "Chief, you're going to find out we're really busy." Okay, so I'm listening to the radio and we're not doing anything. And so I asked them about a week later, I said, "When are we going to get busy?" Because I'm used to, I was used to having multiple channels to where calls were being given out and they were being answered like this. And, and you come in here and it just kind of quieted down just a little bit. We are busy. These guys do a fantastic job, okay? But they're not as busy, as you would see the volume of calls coming in from Knoxville. I'm proud of this police department. I'm proud of the people that are here. you know, I'd hold them up to anybody else in any other agency in this country. I really think, you know, personal opinion, I think we got the best police department in the country. I really do.
What are some of the things you were talking about that you feel like? So first of all, you became police chief when was it?
2015.
Yeah. And so, what would you say has been implemented over your time as police chief that you feel like really improved the department?
A number of different things. You know, we were able to get computers for the cars. Now we have in-car computers. Our officers have been trained with that. We've got a new records management system to where that we can do reporting, and the reporting can be done in the field, and it doesn't take the officer away from their particular zone to go into the building to complete the report. They can do it right in the zone where they're working, and it immediately goes into the records management system at the LPD. So that's a big thing for us. And, you know, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what they're going to be able to do in the future with the programs that the RMS system is going to provide for LPD. Grants, we brought in some grants right off the bat. I was able to secure a grant from the Law Enforcement Innovation Center out of Oak Ridge, which is a nationally recognized training center for policing in forensics. We received a grant to send someone to a forensics class, which is recognized throughout the world as one of the best. Dr. Bill Bass is one of the instructors out of the University of Tennessee. He's one of the instructors in this particular course. The person that I selected to send to that is your chief now, Stephen Wallen. So Stephen got a chance to go to the National Forensics Academy with a number of different people. So, you know, he brought that back, and now he's utilizing his knowledge to help train the officers that are in the field in those type of things as well. More recently, we received a grant from Iowa State University to help address the drug issues within the community. We know it's a problem here, and we're given $40,000 to address that. We just completed that grant, and where we put officers in the field more through overtime processes, bought some equipment to help address some of the issues concerning drugs, and so, you know, we're working hard to do that. A couple other things. When I got here in 2015, we had not had a DARE officer in the schools for a period of 15 years.
Wow.
There had not been a DARE officer in the schools. I mean, we are swarmed with drug activities inside this community, and we're not talking people in the schools. You know? To me, that's craziness is what that is. And so Detective Sergeant Danielle Gilbert is one of our DARE officers. Officer Anthony Mahar, he's our other. And so they're inside the school teaching this, and we got the program started back. I was really proud about that because once we got our program started in the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Goins started a LEADS program, which is similar to DARE, and put it inside the schools that he was responsible for. So, you know, we need to be inside the schools. We need to be teaching these kids about that. Our SRT team, we hadn't had a SWAT team in this community for some time. We're going to go out and we're going to address drugs. We're going to hit high crime, high drug activity homes. And we don't have an SRT team. We don't have somebody that's trained in the ability to go inside that house properly and to do it in a proper manner that's more safe for the officers than what we've been seeing. You know, that's craziness to me too. We had to have this. They do a great job. We got a fantastic SWAT team here, so I'm proud of them too. So those are just a few things that we've done.
In general, since you've been in policing since the 70s, what has it been like with improvements in policing in general? You know, the computers, electronic records, DNA in the 90s. What has it been like seeing all of these advancements?
Multiple changes over the years. I mean, it's really something for sure. You know, you think back and I mean, when I went to work at Knoxville, we had a radio system that allowed us to use a thing called the Converticom. And so the convertible com is a box that would sit in the console of the police car, but it had a walkie-talkie that slid into it. So you put your walkie-talkie in there, and then when you got out of the car to answer your call, you could pull the walkie-talkie out and carry it in. But you know, you didn't have an in-car system and a external system with the walkie-talkie. You had the converted com system. So now we got, you know, radios inside the car, and then we have them also on the officers as well. And you know, that was a big thing. Gone from pretty much laying hands on people to where you use less lethal if you get into a situation that requires that they have to be placed in custody. We didn't have the maze, you know, the type stuff when I first started. We didn't have that. You didn't have tasers. Of course, we still don't have tasers here, but you know, tasers are available. So you use less lethal now to address people instead of, you know, going hand to hand with those particular type of things. Cameras, the cameras are really big. I remember when we put the in-car cameras inside the police department cars in Knoxville, and people would complain on these officers, and you know, you would tell them, so well, just a minute, you know, we got this on tape. Let me see what we have.
And LPD is getting the body cameras soon, right?
We are, yeah, we're getting the body cams. So they're in right now. Where we're at with that particular process is we presented the policy. We've drafted a policy for it. So we presented the policy to council. They're going to vote on it Tuesday night. And so once that policy is voted on, and then the officers are trained in it, then they'll have the body cams as well. But you know, you've gone from in-car cameras now to body cams. So you know, just a number of different types of advancement has occurred over the years.
Right.
Now, how do you feel about that? Because I know there was a line of thinking when body cams were first introduced that, you know, it's surveillance of the police officers. It doesn't make me feel comfortable, et cetera, like that.
You know, it can kind of be a two-edged sword, I guess. But you know, with a proper policy, and if it's written correctly, it's going to be beneficial to the community as a whole and to the police department. Anytime that we've reviewed complaints and we've had the cameras available to where that you can look at those complaints, it just makes it easier to see what's going on. Also, too, it's getting to the point that the court system is requiring video footage of people that you arrest anymore. So we've got to go to this for the community, and we got to go to it for the officer's safety, the citizen's safety, and plus court procedures later on.
Over the time that you were police chief, corresponded with a time nationally when policing was very a hot button issue. How did you feel like you tried to navigate that?
You know, this community has been really supportive of us. I mean, and you know, I can't say enough about that. Even when you saw things nationally going on, people would come up and say, "Hey, listen, you guys are doing a good job. Don't let this get you down." And I heard that more than once. You know, so that made us feel good here, and it made us feel like that we're appreciated here. It's tough in the recruiting process because people see this. You know, if they had a desire to go into policing, they're saying, "Do I really want to do that?" You know, with all the negativism that's going on around this job. But we're seeing people now coming out of their shells more and applying more, and so I think it's turning back around. Everything kind of runs in a cycle in policing. It really does. It just evolves and runs in a cycle. But you get better about things as it makes that cycle. You know, equipment gets better, training gets better, officers get better in the way that they handle things. So, but that's what it looks like to me. It's just kind of you know, runs in a cycle.
How, in a scenario where you know guns are involved and everything like that, how has it changed with everything going on in terms of like how a police officer approaches that?
Well, you have to be safe, and you know, you don't know whether or not anybody's carrying a weapon, and you know, and not everybody that's carrying a weapon's a criminal either.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, people've got a right to carry a handgun. I mean, we've been given that right in this country, and you know, and we're certainly not looking to take that away from anybody. but you have to be safe. And we found that the majority of the people, if you stop them, you stop a car and you get out and you're checking their driver's license. The good citizen's going to say, "Hey, officer, I've got a handgun, or I've got a gun. It's over here. I just wanted you to be aware of that." You just watch. Basically, you watch people's hands a lot. You see what they do. You want to if they keep their hands out in front of you, then there's you're going to be more safe than if they get real fidgety and start putting their hands in the pocket or and look like they're going for something. Officers, if you do that and if you move in that type of manner, officer has a good likelihood that they're going to pull their weapon out and to ensure their safety. So but for the most part, citizens will tell you if they have something like that.
How do you you gave such a recommendation for Steve Wallen to be your successor? But was that you talked about like succession plan? Like how soon did you know like, oh, I would love for Steve Wallen to be my successor, and like how do you feel about it?
I evaluate people when I walk into some place. I might not know you, but I evaluate you, and I base a lot of my determination toward advancement on people, on their abilities and skills and knowledge, and just how sincere they are about things, and their work ethic and their desire to work. Steve Wallen came out just right off the bat and was just very helpful. Could do a number of things that others couldn't do. He's just got a knowledge about him, that you just don't see in a whole lot of people, and I think he's going to serve this community really well.
I know you were in Knoxville when the brunt of it started here, but the opioid epidemic and the drugs now that are affecting LaFollette, what has that been like to navigate over the past 20 or so years?
Well, it kind of changed a little bit. And of course, as you said, coming from Knoxville, we have an organized crime unit that deals specifically with drugs, and you have a number anywhere from 12 to 20 officers that are working drugs within the community in conjunction with the officers that are on the streets. They're trained to do that type of thing as well here. And here we're our officers are knowledgeable about drugs, but we're really fortunate to have a drug officer here that's very knowledgeable, and Matt Forsyth does a really good job. And we were fortunate when the DTF closed. Jamie Hall was looking for a position, and we were fortunate to get Jamie as well. So we got two real good officers with a lot of training in that area that's working at LPD. So very helpful.
Right.
Do you feel like the drug problem has improved over the course of the last, say, decade?
It's crazy. When I left here and went to Knoxville, I could probably tell you the people that were on drugs, and it's pretty much people were smoking marijuana. That's about all you saw. Maybe a little bit of cocaine, maybe a little bit. But, and then you come back 35, 40 years later, it's in every household, and I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's in every household. You might not be a user, but you've got somebody that you love or somebody that that's impacted by this, and it impacts you, even, So, it's the drug issue's this. We can work it, we can work the drugs, we can put people in jail, but unless they want to get better, unless they want to get off of it, and they seek to for self-improvement, that's the only thing that you got. That's what you got. You hope and pray that they seek the opportunity to reform.
Do you feel like we as a society almost like ask too much of police officers, because there's a school of thought that we ask them to be kind of a psychologist, a social worker, a lot of different avenues that maybe, your specific training is in law enforcement, crime prevention, but there's other aspects, and especially in terms of dealing with a mental illness, that kind of end up falling under the purview.
Well, the mental illness issue is one that is really a tough thing to deal with. A lot of people that are mentally ill are on the street, and that's unfortunate. I remember years ago when I first started working in Knoxville, we had Lakeshore, and you had the opportunity to get people evaluated by an emergency room doctor, and then you would take them to Lakeshore, where the physician there would evaluate them as well. And if they saw the need to keep them, they would. If they saw the need for them to go back home, they'd have you take them back home. But there was a facility there that would deal with this. The state elected not to have this type of structure anymore, and so it's fallen upon the police officers and other people within the community. What's really sad is you've only got one room in this hospital up here that is capable to hold, a mentally ill patient, and yet they get people that come in there and are sitting there in line waiting to be treated and whatnot. And mobile crisis, mobile crisis, they're booked solid too, and then they're trying to find a facility to put these people in. So, I really don't know the answer to the mental health problem, but it is a problem. It's one that needs to be addressed community-wide and statewide, instead of just placing the entire burden upon the officers to deal with these people daily.
Mm-hmm. Have there been any moments over your course in law enforcement where you're just like something happened and you're just like, oh, this is the right thing for me to do, and this was the right path for me to take?
Well, I just knew it was the right path. I mean, you do things that tend to help people and things of that nature, and you just feel good about the job that you selected. I can't think of any one thing. I know over the years that I saw people in need and tried to assist them, and hopefully I did a good job for them. I hope I did.
I know when you said like you kind of like assess people, evaluate people. How would you say being a police officer has changed the way you think? Like, because there's some people who say that they can't really turn it off. Like they go to the grocery store and they're canvassing.
Well, I kind of turn it off, but I observe a lot. I mean, I don't have blinders on. I mean, if I go in someplace and I see something that doesn't look right, I'm gonna pay attention to it. It might not need to be addressed by a police officer, but you pay attention to it. It's just, you become a better observer, I believe.
What advice or what do you think is the most important for like a younger officer? Like what do you think is the most important lesson you learned while on the job?
Well, what I think is most important for a young officer is never stop learning. No, never stop learning. If you get the position, don't say, okay, well, I've got this position. Don't get badge heavy. Don't run out here and treat people cruel because you got the opportunity and the authority to arrest somebody or to take somebody's life if you have to do that. Don't be badge heavy. Keep learning. If you get the opportunity to go to schools, go to schools. Number one, I tell you this: get your degree, because if it doesn't do anything else, I mean, it doesn't make you a better person, but it opens doors. So I would go. I would seek that.
With everything going on right now, with some of the situations with the police department right now, I guess what's your opinion on that? I know that the findings that were presented to LaFollette City Council, on which they based their decision to terminate 2 of the police officers. I know that there was a finding that said that they suggested a review of the police department as a whole. Like, what was your opinion on that?
I think that entire situation is unfortunate. I know that people have ambitions, but sometimes ambitions need to be in check, and you need to keep those in check. It's always good to have a review about things. This police department is wide as doors are open. If anybody wants to come in and take a look at it, we try to do things above board. That entire situation right there, that was handled through council, by council, and so that's where it falls.
One thing that I couldn't help but notice from the findings is, I don't know if it was overtly stated, but it seemed like there was a suggestion that hey, the police chief should be able to fire and hire people just directly. Is that something you feel like?
Yeah, absolutely, I believe that.
Okay.
And, I think that you should have the opportunity to do that as the police chief. Now, that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a review process in place for the decisions that you make, or an appeal process. But, I think that any boss, if you're going to be the boss of an organization, you got to be able to have control of the individuals that work for you. And, and one of the things is having the stinger that allows you to hire and fire.
So do you think like the fact that city council is the one that has the hiring and firing power that makes it a little more difficult?
I think it puts a hurdle in place to have to overcome. All the chief can do in this organization right now is to make a recommendation to the city administrator, and then it goes before council, and recommendations made before council. So if you do that, and let's say it's early in the month, okay, you're waiting 28 or 30 days before you can get to council to have the opportunity to address that particular issue. I really believe that it should fall upon the chief to have the right to hire and fire, and then an appeal process be in place. That's pretty much how it's done in Knoxville.
What other issues would you say? What other challenges would you say you had as the chief? I know that pay is always
Well, I encourage. I always tried to get everybody a pay raise. I mean, routinely I'd have people come in and say, I'm doing this job, like this, and this is my responsibility. I feel like that I deserve a pay increase. Well, I feel like everyone deserves a pay increase. Since I started work here, one of the very first things that I did is I asked for a 3% cost of living pay increase for every city employee, not just the police department, but for everybody. You need to have a cost of living increase. We see what we're running in here into today, as far as the increases in prices and milk, bread, eggs, and you still got to feed your family.
right.
So I mean, it just makes good sense to have that cost of living process in place. So, I've fought to try to get that. We've not gotten it in there, but it's still something I feel like that needs to be done for every city employee, not just the police department.
How does the pay in LaFollette for the officers compare, not necessarily to others in Campbell County, because I know they're all around the same, but others in East Tennessee? Because I know that's an argument I've heard a lot at the county level in other cities is, well, we can't find anybody because we don't pay as much as neighboring counties. Is that the same in LPD?
Everybody's got, right now we're 2 officers short, okay? And everybody has, officer vacancies. And so you have officers that are looking to hire people, and they're making adjustments. Agencies are making adjustments to get people in place to serve their community. I mean, they want to keep their community safe. Everybody does. I do. The police chief in Knoxville does. They want to keep their community safe. Well, they go before their boards, council, those type of things, and they ask for various different things, pay raises and whatnot. We can't compete with someplace like Knoxville. We can't. I spoke with a deputy chief in Knoxville not very long ago, and they're shorthanded. They were 70 officers down, and so they're having to pay overtime to fill the vacancies and that type of thing. So they offered a lateral academy to where they would bring you in. If you've already gone to a police academy, you come through, you learn Knoxville's processes. They offer a lateral academy, and then by the time you get out of the lateral academy, the field training program, you're offered a take-home car, benefits, and then your salary's $40,000 plus. Well, you can't do that. It's tough to do that here. But our pay is competitive for the area here, I believe.
What would you say in terms of just overall? So like, what was the decision? Was it like you knew well in advance? This is September 1st is gonna be my last day, or when did you make that decision?
Well, I do kind of plan. you know, it's one of these things. And I looked at it kind of early on. I mean, when I first got here, I said, you know, my goal is to try to achieve this, this time frame with my career, and and the age and the tenure and all that stuff just seemed to come together, and as September 1, picking September 1, the date, I had about three dates in mind, and I would go from one to the next, back and forth. And after speaking with my family and speaking with my wife, it just worked out that September 1 was the best date, and, so there it is. But yeah, again, I did have about three dates in mind. I wouldn't have made it any further than January of next year.
So you've been in law enforcement since 1978. What are you going to do September 2nd? What's your plans for retirement?
Well, I was asked that. They said, what are you going to do tomorrow? I had one of my officers ask me, what are you going to do tomorrow, Chief? I said, I've got a couple of cars to wash. So that's going to be right off the bat. But no, I'm very active in our church.
Where do you go?
I go to Gospel Baptist in South Clinton. Unfortunately, our pastor has passed away, and we no longer have a pastor right now. So we're going to have to start a process for a search in order to get a pastor in there. They asked me to speak, so I'm speaking on Sundays, and so we're holding one service a week right now. Whereas a preacher, they're really good about getting the materials together. It's kind of tough working full time and getting materials together too. So they do 3 services. We're conducting one right now, but we're going to get a pastor in there. I intend we have some maintenance things that need to be done. I'm going to one of those is painting the outside portion of the church. I intend next month to be painting the church, so I'm going to do that. So I'm gonna play some golf too. My wife's given me permission to go to the golf course, so I intend to play a little golf too.
What's your wife's name and how did you meet?
Her name's Connie, and Connie was a graduate from East Tennessee State in dental hygiene. Her first job as a hygienist was with Dr. Trapman up here.
Okay.
His office directly behind the police department. I went to the dentist one day to have my teeth cleaned, and we met, and we started dating, and that was it. And we went there. I met her before I went into law enforcement. So
you didn't. You forgave. Did she do any surgical work or anything like that? You forgave her after that? Or?
No, it was all good. I mean, it just clicked. I mean, we had just such a good relationship. Good dating experience, a good life. We've had a great life together. I've got 3 children. They're all adults, much like you two, and then I've got 3 grandchildren. I mean, everything's just wonderful, and like I said, good Lord's blessed me. He's blessed me.
Was it hard to balance family life with policing? Because I know there is a lot of overtime a lot.
Well, that would be a question pretty much that you should ask my wife. I was gone quite a bit, and early on we've gotten to the point that anytime that she and I go anywhere, she drives. Okay? Because early on I was in the police car all the time, and I was always driving, and I put multiple miles on the car and that type of thing. And you'd come in the afternoon, and she'd say, well, let's go do something. I said, well, I'll go if you'll drive, And so I threw her the keys, and we started that process, and she's been driving ever since. But, anytime she pulls up and there's a car, she's in the driver's seat, and I'm in the passenger seat. But, we were able to manage things. There's some tough times. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll not tell you that everything's rosy. I mean, you're going to go through tough times because people a lot of times don't understand when you don't talk about things, because you have to keep some of this stuff confidential. You can't, you just can't go out and tell it to the public. So, a normal citizen sometimes doesn't understand that, but she's been really good about that. She handled the household when I was gone for training. I've been gone multiple times in training. That's taken me away at month's end. Spent 3.5 months at Louisville, Kentucky, at the Southern Police Institute. Spent 3 months in Quantico at the FBI Academy. Spent about a month and a half up in Boston, going to Perth, the executive school for senior managers, Perth School up there, and she's had to manage the household, and she's done really well. And so I think if I weren't around, she'd be fine.
Our last question for you. If you look back on your time as a LaFollette police chief, what goes through your mind?
When I look back, again, first statement I said, the good Lord's blessed me, and I can't thank him enough for what he's done for me in my life. I got the opportunity to do something I've always wanted to do. Connie told me early on in my career, she said, you really enjoy this career. She said, you're really blessed. You're one of the people that has, you're getting to do something that you like to do. It's been my life. It's been a great life. Now it's time to turn a new chapter, and I'm ready to do so. So, we're going to move forward from here. But I think, one last statement.
Yeah.
I think this community is really going to be, head and shoulders in our law enforcement as time goes on, because we're going to see changes in technology and things, and we got leadership in place at LPD that's going to seek those changes. So I think the community is going to benefit.
LaFollette Police Chief Bill Roehl on his final day in office. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.